Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for our annual PlayStation Predictions 2026. We will, of course, grade myself from last year, see how well I did, and give 10 new predictions for the PlayStation business for the next 365 days. Oh boy, it is good to be back doing our annual predictions video. It's one of my favorite ones that we do every year. And so with that in mind, timestamp right there if you want to jump to the brand new predictions. But we of course have to see how well I did from last year. And that's where 2025 was very turbulent, as I'm sure most of you know. So with number one, we always predict sales. PlayStation 5, I said by the end of 2025, would be at 92 million consoles sold worldwide. Now, the PSA I always have to give here is that we can't properly grade myself just yet because we have to wait for the next fiscal report for the final number. So we have to do some guesswork on how accurate I was or was not. And so with that 92 million number, the previous quarter, Sony confirmed they were at 84.2 million consoles sold. Now that's obviously a very big gap, but we are missing the very crucial holiday season where Sony sells a majority of consoles for that given calendar year. So guessing where they're at, 84.2 million from the previous quarter, launch aligned with PlayStation 4 during that quarter, so the same time frame, they sold 8.1 million consoles. So if Sony were to match or get very close to that 8 million figure of consoles sold, that means tack that 8 on to 84 million, I'm around 92. So that's assuming Sony can match the PS4 sales pace, which they have been able to do for a lot of Q3 and Q4s, and in some cases they were actually up year over year, which is a very weird bucking the trend of the typical console decay curve because of how old PlayStation 5 is now at this point. And we also saw that GTA 6 did not come out last year, and that will go into the predictions for the following year or this existing one, right? So with that in mind, I think 92 is actually pretty good. I hope I'm not too far off. The other portion, which we can just pass right by, this PSVR 2, this is 2-3 years in a row now. They just do not give any updated sales figures for PlayStation VR just in totality, right? They don't disclose it. I said if they ever do give a number, I think it's over 2 million, but they're just never going to say anything because those numbers are probably not very impressive. With that in mind, let's go into our number 2 prediction, which was, I said PlayStation 5 and PSVR 2 receives an official price cut and PS5 Pro gets a holiday sale. Now, the thing is, before you make fun of me, I'm half right. I get a half point here because PS5 Pro did get a holiday sale after getting a price increase. So went up to $750 USD, went down $100 during the Black Friday sale to $650. So it did see its first holiday get a Black Friday holiday sale. PSVR 2, I mean, we do the predictions every early January. February of that year, last year rather, it got a massive price decrease, an official cut of over $100, $150. So I did get that portion right. It's just that PlayStation 5, the regular console, indeed saw price increases in most key markets. And so here in the US, it went up from $500 to $550, digital edition, $500. So it's tough, but it's one of those things where it's all based on the product category. So I got some portions of that prediction correct. Number 3, Guerrilla Games reveals Horizon multiplayer game in May, launches in July, August. My framing there was that it would be very similar to a Concord and that they announce and launch it very soon. And the thing is, this game still is just not revealed, not shown off. It's not even official just yet. I mean, we got some progress updates from this previous year, and that is Guerrilla's next game, and I would certainly hope so, because as we often say, that game's been in the oven since at least 2018. So it has been in development for a very long time. The more embarrassing thing I find about the previous year is that we learned about the NCSoft Horizon MMO, Steel Frontiers, well before this other Horizon game that was in-house at Guerrilla since 2018. And that NCSoft deal was signed only a few years ago, so it's kind of a whole spiel, and that Horizon MMO game is only on mobile of all things. So it's certainly a very surprising result, but number 3 was incorrect. Number 4, I said Santa Monica Studio reveals their new IP by the end of the year. This did not happen. However, we will be talking more about this in the predictions portion. Number 5, I said Bluepoint Games is not doing their own project, but supporting Santa Monica's new IP instead. Hoo daddy. This also was something that we did learn about finally, which was Bluepoint was, for a certain amount of time, working on a God of War live service game. So It did fit that criteria of them working on an existing property, so original content, not necessarily a new IP. At the time when I discussed that production, it's like, well, they don't necessarily have these game director roles, creative director roles, and they were coming out of working on supporting God of War Ragnarok as just simply a support team. And so my line of thinking was, what if they're just still working with Santa Monica on this new IP? And that's kind of where they're at right now. Obviously, what they did end up doing went in a much different direction, and we're not here to harp on that, just that for the prediction itself, it was incorrect. So number 6, I also said that we would get gameplay for Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet shown during Summer Game Fest. That too did not happen. However, we'll talk about that later for the predictions portion. Number 7, I said more IP would be licensed out similar to Freedom Wars Remastered, so examples like Soul Sacrifice Delta, maybe Puppeteer, Tokyo Jungle, a new Loco Roco game. So none of the examples I gave ended up happening, but we did get more licensed out properties to Bandai Namco with Patapon 1+2 and also Hot Shots. So that's great. I mean, for the most part, what I was predicting did end up happening. Likely those games were all sort of licensed and bundled up at the same time, so I'm not sure if we'll see more, if that experiment was successful or not for SIE, although I certainly hope that they are more open to going into their back catalog and just handing out some of these IP to other publishers so these games have a better shot at finding a new audience on PS5, PC, and even in some cases, Switch 2. Number 8, I said Sony increases their stake in Epic Games a 4th time. Now, the Sony group certainly spent money in 2025. It's just that SIE did not make any sort of investments like that prediction. Number 9, I said PS5 firmware updates begin cooling down. Folders will come, but no major themes, no UI refresh, nothing of that sort. And that's for the most part half correct because, well, we did not get folders. And I really thought we would because, like, that's the thing I always have a lot of conviction in saying as far as the software updates and the design of the console's UI is that it was very purposefully designed to not really have themes like PlayStation 4 did. The games are your background. So while the Welcome Hub has been getting new wallpapers, but that's simply for the Welcome Hub. We're all in agreement that's not really what people wanted for themes on the console. So, the UI, the user experience has stayed the exact same for the most part. No UI refresh like PS4 saw during the midpoint of its life cycle. And I really thought we would at least get proper folders, not game lists in the collection, something you can keep in home on the front page and tile into games, and then you get a breakdown of more titles that you can launch from there. So we did not get that maybe this year, but I'm also inclined to say that maybe what we have is pretty much it. Number 10, I said From Software PS5 and PC exclusives ramp up and Demon's Souls PC confirmed, which I'm really surprised at least Demon's Souls was not confirmed. That PC version was on the NVIDIA leak list, and Sony's been shipping all their back catalog games to PC, so that's the one that still has not happened for some reason. Really don't know why. Maybe it's just not even coming anymore. I really can't say why. But this prediction was also a prediction of a rumor, which there were no credible rumors for any sort of Sony or FromSoft collaboration. They're very close together. They've got a minority investment, and I'm sure something may blossom and happen down the road, but we had no credible rumors. In fact, the previous year was more about Switch 2 and the Duskbloods. But now we can get into the 2026 predictions, 10 new ones for 2026. With that said, the sales predictions, I should say. So for PlayStation 5, I am predicting 107.5 million consoles will be sold by the end of this year. This number is very hard to come to because there are, at this point in time, a lot of external factors that Sony can't control and they have to deal with, and it's just the market conditions, the current global economy, the RAM prices soaring, which may affect the PlayStation 5's suggested retail price. There's, of course, the tariffs as well, which have been completely uncertain and constantly shifting and changing. And then there's also the game availability as well. Last year's predictions were contingent on what happens with GTA 6 if it comes out on time. That game is going to move units, and now we have it positioned November 2026, holiday season. The game, no matter when it was going to come out, was going to sell well, obviously. But, Sony may have a bundle available. There's just a lot of ways this could go. I came to a number that's similar to PS4 on a launch line basis. PS4 within the same time frame was at 106 million, so this does position PlayStation 5 a bit higher than PlayStation 4, which I expect, and that is partly due to being able to overcome everything around it as well. So even though there's all these external factors at play for the console, its pricing, and maybe the pricing will go up, which I'll talk about in a second here too, but it's seemingly not really stopping customers from buying the console. That's the other surprising thing, and that's what we saw from the previous year, is that maybe there is just a shift up here. I mean, there certainly is when it comes to the buyers that are picking up PlayStation 5. It's simply more affluent families. But the reality is the sales pace is not slowing down. They are doing really well, and I expect that will continue, certainly for a flagship game like Grand Theft Auto 6. PSVR 2, whatever. Over 2 million. If they ever talk about numbers, then we'll figure out what they're doing there. Number 2, though. I said a picture of the PlayStation 6 development kit leaks online before the end of the year. Folks, regardless of what may or may not happen with the launch timing of next gen, which we were still fully expecting, the sort of more modern 7-year console cycle, because prior to PlayStation 3, those console cycles were much shorter, 4 or 5 years. So the typical cycle now is 7-something years. That means the machine is still positioned to ship late 2027, but regardless of what the launch timing looks like, it's still very far along enough to where like dev kits will be out there. So 2026 is going to be the year of PlayStation 6 rumors. If you thought they were obnoxious and annoying throughout the previous year, they're only going to get worse, because once dev kits are out there, that is the thing. And that's the other humorous portion, is that it's going to be the same news cycle over again. I think we're going to get that spy shot, that potato shot of a dev kit that might look very strange, weird, unusual. People are going to think that's the console retail design, and that's not really what it's going to look like. But, I think before the year closes out, we will see in some way, shape, or form a PlayStation 6 dev kit, which that kit is probably just, 1 or 2 different models that are variable for the home console, and also this handheld that Sony's allegedly working on as well. But that goes into my number 3, which is Sony begins mandating power saver mode support, because this is sort of a baseline performance profile that is going to help facilitate more reliable compatibility for PS5 games on this local play handheld when Sony eventually ships that machine. So there's still a power delta that we're working with here for a 15-watt handheld, and Power Saver gets these games down to 90-something watts, 100 watts. It really depends on the game, but generally for the first few that we've seen, that's around where those games fall. And then based on any sort of APU efficiencies that the handheld does have, it will be able to bridge that gap, but you still need a lot of games to support low power mode. The other thing, too, is that the handheld itself will have its own performance profile. Games don't have to be made as a PS5 low power mode to then run on this handheld necessarily. You can specifically target that specification, but in the here and now, for reliability of playback of all the software that we currently have, it's within Sony's best interest to maybe mandate this from studios. Now, you can't do a hard mandate right away. You introduce it, encourage a lot of developer support, give it time, and then eventually just say, hey, from X, Y, and Z date, when you submit a game, you have to submit a performance profile for low power mode. Which, the only thing I'm sort of like pulling back on this a bit, just in the sense that, like, I don't know if Sony is going to be like super aggressive on that in the interest of their third-party publishing partners, because it's like, if they do this, sometime this year, you're telling me that they're going to ask Rockstar Games to make a low power mode for Grand Theft Auto 6. Like, I almost feel like there would be exemptions happening left and right just to please those bigger releases. But I would think that Sony will be heavily pushing it, and at some point mandating that for this handheld by this year, so that way all the games coming out this year and the following year will have a lot of titles that'll be properly whitelisted and playable on that local play handheld. Number 4, PS5 price increases $50, but not PlayStation 5 Pro. It's very clear that it's very dependent on product category. PS5, the base machine, high volume, they're selling a lot of them. It seems like this RAM problem is not going away, and it's not going away anytime soon. what that may or may not do for next gen remains to be seen, but in the here and now, where Sony is very protective of the console price tag itself, they were very reluctant to increase prices for the console here in the US, and they have deployed many strategies to try and keep that price increase at bay, but there's only so much that Sony can do. And the other thing too is that they probably also carefully watching the entire situation and having a year or so of experience with tariffs and moving production allocation, and now realizing that our rate of sale is still very strong with this higher price tag as well. That's the scary thing, is that the price tag is starting to get baked in and normalized. So even when these things go away, like you can kind of see where Sony is going to be setting with the cost of this machine, but I think it may get to a point where it's unavoidable. Goes up to $600. PS5 Pro, the price went up for that recently as well, sure, but it's still going up in the sense that it's a low volume console where they probably want to see return on every machine sold. And just optically, even though it is a low volume, high performance console, it may just be too much to have that machine priced at nearly $800, right, before you even throw in a disk drive. So I'm inclined to say they're not going to increase the Pro, maybe have that be seen as a slightly more attractive option when you have that product offering of $750 for a Pro and then $600 for a base console. A few people might just be sitting there thinking to themselves, with how expensive GPU prices are and everything around them getting so expensive, if they're looking to pick up a luxury gaming item that's still somewhat affordable, a PS5 Pro starts to sound like a much more compelling option, even though it'll still probably be fairly low volume. Number 5, Sony Santa Monica reveals a new game in the God of War franchise, and the Pro tag is not Kratos or Atreus. We have heard recently this game, this new IP, or what we thought for a long time was a new IP from Cory Barlog, the next major project out of Santa Monica, is not a new IP, but it feels like one. To me, that reads very clearly as, okay, it's the God of War universe, but it's somebody else. And I am very inclined to also say that it's not what most people were probably expecting, which is a spin-off Atreus game. Atreus gets his own game. I don't think you do an Atreus story on their own. I think there is something else that you tell in that universe. Do I know what? No, but that's what I feel very strongly in that that's probably what they're doing. They're exploring the God of War universe. It's not Kratos. It's not his son. It is somebody else. I think the time to see this game is this year. I don't know when, but it's certainly a big title that you make a huge splash about. So whether it's an SGF, TGA thing, maybe during a PlayStation showcase, if they ever want to call a live stream that again, or a state of play, I don't care where it is, but I think this is the year where we see that. I gotta scroll down here. All right, number 6, a God of War 2.5D Metroidvania game, the one we've been hearing a lot about. That is revealed specifically at the February State of Play, and it launches this summer. And I'll just throw in a little extra thing here. I didn't write it down, but T.C. Carson is indeed in the game, reprising his role as that young Kratos, which is what we've been hearing about this game. So this might be one of the more safer predictions, which is why I wanted to really dial this one in that we'll see it here, and here's where it launches. But the 2.5D Metroidvania thing, we heard it was going to be announced at the 20th anniversary for God of War. They allegedly delayed it to add voice acting. I mean, whatever the situation is, I think it was a more modest delay, and this smaller scale game is kind of like an Astrobot or something where they show it off and it comes out relatively soon. So that's what I'm saying for that one. Why does it keep scrolling down? Okay, number 7, Fairgame is re-revealed and private betas begin. Now, folks, let me tell you, I started writing these down, right? And initially, the prediction was Fairgame canceled, Haven Studios shut down. Complete swing back in the other direction here. I don't know. I kind of want to play around with this. I might be completely off, but I do want the record to show on video. The initial typing of this prediction was that the game is canceled and the studio shut down. But a part of me thinks that it fills a different genre. With enough time, maybe they've figured out the gameplay loop. We heard that internal, mock testing of the game and some play testing wasn't really going all that well. We know Jade Raymond left, and all that doesn't sound very good, obviously. But with what Sony's learned from these live service growing pains, I think this game does still fit a certain genre that Sony is wanting to explore. They might have something. Maybe that's the thing. They're not afraid to cut their losses and move on. I don't know if it is a matter of a sunken cost fallacy at this point, but you have to assume that if it's still going on to this day, there's something there and they're on a path to shipping the product. I just think that how they navigate it nowadays is you put playables out there. So if they believe the game has a shot at being anything, you don't properly launch it like a Concord. I really don't think they'll be doing anything like that. Again, even something similar with Marathon, where it's like, yeah, the game is going to come out and it's going to be a premium price title, but they've been doing these alphas throughout time, and like Concord didn't go through that whatsoever. I think that's how Sony's going to be approaching it from this point onward, and Fairgames, I think, is going to get its chance at least through betas before having an official launch. Number 8, Intergalactic gameplay trailer at SGF or the TGA's, a 2027 release year confirmed. This might also be a very safe bet, but it's like one of those things where Sony shows up to any sort of Jeff Keighley show, they usually give him something. The big thing is more so the TGA's, but whether it's the TGA's or SGF, with enough time, I think that's where Naughty Dog is. We also heard that from the Bloomberg report anyways, that, you know, a gameplay reveal is pretty much planned for some time this year. I mean, I'm thinking that might be the safest one here, but I do want to point out specifically they will tag a year onto this thing, which it will be 2027. Number 9, Firesprite reveals a new Until Dawn game. That too launches 2027. I don't know where they talk about this game, reveal it. I was inclined to say that they actually reveal it and it launches this year as well. But you have to figure, like, all right, well, they want to do at least 1 to 2 tentpole games per year. I'm not sure if this is going to be a tentpole game. You would certainly consider it that. I also don't think it's going to be an Until Dawn, like, 2 name. I think it's going to be an Until Dawn, maybe subtitle, obviously a new cast. But I'm not sure as far as scope and size. I mean, it's probably just going to be another Until Dawn game. I think that's what everyone's kind of expecting. But I find that we're ready to see that game too. So that's what I put for number 9. Number 10, I said a new PlayStation Portal with bigger battery and an OLED screen is revealed for $249.99 USD. Now more than ever, the Portal has been doing far better than Sony was expecting. As I film this, the Sony CES AFILA event just ended, and Eric Lempel, the SVP at SIE, just dropped some facts about the PlayStation Portal, and that it's accounting for 50% of all remote play sessions. I also want to clarify, I wrote all this stuff before that live stream, but seeing that live stream made me feel more confident about that prediction I wrote down, which is that this Portal device has really done much better than they were expecting. And to a company like Sony, that means, okay, this very experimental device, that means we are going to monetize it further. What do? We sell more of them with this additional device and also the existing Portal user base, which are highly engaged customers. So they're looking for people to double dip on that machine as well, and a modest $50 price increase for what might be 2 very big benefits. The OLED screen will certainly, I think, excite a lot of people, and just having a slightly bigger battery or something. Just a slightly revised form factor and some sort of PS Portal 2.0 device with a slightly higher price tag will be available later this year as well. Folks, that is my 2026 predictions. I actually feel really good about these ones. I don't know. Sometimes I write them down and I think, I don't know where we're going to go this year, but I don't know. I'm feeling something. I'm hoping I do very well, and that's the thing. We will find out 2027 in January, where I grade myself and give it 10 new predictions. But by all means, let me know what you think and where PlayStation is going to go. But well, I do the 10 on this channel, and also we're doing 5 new predictions on Click R3 as well, so me and John will do that. We'll have a Click R3 episode sometime later next week, I think. That'll be our first one for this year as well. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in my next video. You take it easy.